Hello, and welcome to a special edition of the Latino Business Report. The Latino Business Report is produced by TAMAC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce, the leading Hispanic business organization in Texas since 1975. And now for the conclusion of this special edition of the Latino Business Report. JR continues the conversation with immigration attorneys Alejandro Martinez and Raymundo Valdez during the TAMAC quarterly meeting held in McAllen, Texas. Part 2 of the two-part series wraps after this short break. You're listening to the Latino Business Report.
Okay, welcome back to Part 2. My name is J.R. Gonzales. I am your host of Latino Business Report. And today we have, for Part 2, Alejandro Martinez, attorney at law, and Raymundo Valdez, attorney at law also. Gentlemen, thank you for staying and doing Part 2 of this show. I mean, we kind of went there for a while. Where did we leave off? Anybody remember?
God. We're
talking
the wall.
About the wall is there. Okay.
And what's going to work or not?
Yeah, why are the Hispanics being grouped into a category that is criminal in nature, that actually is a legitimate offense to this country, which are illegal immigrants that are actually causing crimes and have committed aggravated felonies and are actually doing wrong things? Why is it that all Hispanics are all of a sudden now being blamed, and why are we all being perceived as being these criminal aliens, as the terms or the technical terms are being called in legislation and executive orders? That's wrong. The Hispanic culture should not be categorized as being criminal aliens for the simple fact that you're Hispanic. That's part of what's going on.
And that's part of this symbolism of the wall. Across the border between Mexico and the U.S. kind of gives or plays into the theory that it's Mexicans that are the wrong type of immigrants. Because it is between Mexico and the United States. Why aren't they building a wall between Canada and the United States? You know? So it plays
I think they ought to build a wall between Texas and California myself, but that's a whole other deal. You know, you were talking about that, and as we look at it, watching some of the newscasts and these talking heads, you're absolutely right. When they're talking about violent criminal aliens, it's like they can't separate it. It's just, not that you just have somebody here that's undocumented. Everybody is a violent criminal.
Yeah, and then they're rapists, and they're
drug dealers, and bad hombres. And we go back to what we spoke about earlier in part 1 about this administration using fear tactics to gain support for their actions. And this kind of rhetoric is what's gaining support for the executive actions that the president took against the immigration community, when in fact there is no basis for this. Now, he uses the phrase violent criminal aliens, when in fact the executive actions opens up the floodgates for any individual that's here without legal authority to be detained and deported without due process. And that's a very important point to point out.
Doesn't that contradict what you were talking about the other day?
Exactly.
As immigrants have rights?
Immigrants
the rule
have
of
rights.
law
the rule
is
of
due process.
So the executive order, as it is, cuts into the law, changes the law, which a president cannot do, and stops due process that an immigrant has a right to. These are legal rights that persons, whether they're here illegally or legally,
how they got here.
have a right.
Yes.
And what this executive order does, and that this is not spoken about in the media, or the president doesn't say this, he just says, I'm deporting criminal aliens, but he doesn't say, criminal aliens involves everybody that's here illegally, not just those that are convicted of crimes. It actually open up the floodgates for anybody that's considered to be a national threat at the discretion of the detaining officer, which is a very scary part. I'm sure Mr. Martinez will let you know, as I have experienced, that when it comes to discretion, and you give an authority the discretion to use their power, their discretion to enforce a law, you will find that it's not prevalent, like I said before, but there is a lot of abuse of it. Abuse of the discretion. And
To their discretionary power. So in other words, a police officer.
a police officer can be the authority that's detaining you,
The judge, the jury,
the judge,
and the
and
deporter.
the
And the deporter.
executor.
in chief. Yeah, absolutely.
And
And that's not how our legal system is based.
And I'm not taking anything away from our law enforcement community because I think it's,
No.
it's absolutely one. But
Absolutely.
You also have some communities where these officers aren't very well trained, or you have where they have reserve officers or auxiliary officers that are, the guy that works down at the meat market. Here's a badge. Here's a gun. Let's go protect the border and start, arresting and deporting Mexicans.
I hear this
It's
story.
scary.
I hear this story over and over with some of my clients that have entered the country in an undocumented way without inspection multiple times. And why did they do that? I ask them, why did you do this? Why didn't you just ask for a judge? Because the officer told me that if I sign this paper, I will be okay and I could come back and fix my papers because I have a U.S. citizen spouse. That's not true. That's not true. So officers, because of the lack of education and the lack of training, are giving misinformation to the people that are being detained. Now let's understand something. The officer's duties are not to advise the person on legal matters. It's to enforce the law. But when you give them the discretion as wide as it has been given, they use that discretion to their advantage and against the person they're being detained in order to get the resolution they want, not to help the individual.
And you were talking earlier during the day, and I heard that this whole thing about expedited removal.
Which is a deportation. It's just another word
So
for
will these
direct
officers
deportation.
will have access to that
Yes,
as well?
absolutely.
So in other words, without due process, whatever, if you get somebody who just
There we go.
POPO, a
That's
pissed off police
exactly the point.
officer, he doesn't like the color of your eyes, or he doesn't like what you're wearing, or you smarted off to him, and he gets mad, he can say, okay, I deem it's my discretion that you're here illegally, so I'm going to pack you
You
up.
offended
deport
me,
you.
so I find you to be a threat to national security because you offended a police officer. So now I have the right to expedite remove you, which just means another word for deporting a person really fast.
I think they call
without
it
due process.
repatriation.
Yeah.
We're going to repatriate you.
And unfortunately, with this new executive order,
But that's not the way America was supposed to work.
Exactly.
No,
Exactly.
but there's an underlying factor. There's a pattern of conduct that, as much as you want to call it fake news, or you're a Hillary supporter, or whatever it is that the administration is trying to categorize you, to discredit you. It is a fact that from the very beginning of the campaign that was going on, there's been an underlying and a direct message also towards the immigrant community. And now with these executive orders, we have blurred the line between what is criminal and between what is simply illegal, which is two different things. It is illegal to cross into this country. It is illegal to be here in this country without a legal permit. That's illegal. But criminal is different. Criminal, you can be placed in jail because of the act that you're doing and because you are harming the community.
And
so now this executive order has now blurred the lines between illegal and criminal, and now they're saying if you're here illegal,
Everything
now
is
you are
criminal.
criminal. Now you are criminal. So it's a bait and switch. It's a switch of it's a nice little switcheroo right there. You're getting hoodwinked, and in reality, it's a way for now these officers to be able to go up to anyone that doesn't have status and say you are a threat to national security because you are a criminal alien and to get ready to get deported. And I am the decider of whether or not we're going to do an expedited removal because I don't know if you're looking at me too funny or not. Let's see how the day ends up, and from there we'll take it.
So it's just not a matter of semantics, it's a matter of changing the meaning of the law.
Yes. And
Now-
doing it through an executive order,
Now-
which is not the legal system we have. In order to change the law, there has to be legislation passed by our congressmen and senators, which are elected officials for the people.
And you would think that if that's the way, if you would think that that if we want to hold people accountable, so then The way they did it with DAPA and with DACA, where the federal court said this is unconstitutional, you cannot give a legal permit to these individuals by an executive order, which Trump supported, and now he has executive orders himself doing the exact very same thing that those federal courts said you can't do. Where is the integrity in what you're saying? Where is the consistency? Or are you just manipulating the system in a way that is to your best convenience?
And then what concerns
pander
me,
to your
why is there such silence on this issue by the GOP? I mean,
what does the GOP stand
Party.
for? What is the what is I'm sorry, but Jared, what do those initials stand for?
well, they have,
GOP.
There's a lot of different meanings on that one.
Grand old party.
I see where you're going. I'm not. You set me up, counselor. You're setting me up.
But you know what I'm saying.
No, I know.
Who does that represent? Who's the grand old party? Who's the grand old party?
I know exactly. I know exactly what you're saying, and I've heard some folks talking about this. I don't want to sound like I've heard but I can't help but feel that a lot of the current Republican Congress is staying silent because in this, our president of the United States right now, as unconventional as he may be, some of the things that he's doing is kind of in line with some of the agendas. Is let him be the
hidden
hidden agendas. Let him be the wild card.
I agree.
And take the heat, and let's move our agenda, our hidden agenda, as much as we can until we finally have to put a stop to this. Because we can't go through 4 years of this.
Look,
of this
Republicans
circus
can't go ahead and be pro-immigration, and they can't go and be fully anti-immigration because they lose votes. And this is a reality of politics. They have to play to people's wants and needs so they could get re-elected back into their chair or their seat, their position.
And to be fair and try to be balanced here, what the heck are the Democrats doing? I mean, as they're outvoted, but it's kind of like...
And this is funny because, funny thing you bring this up. Yesterday there was a meeting between congressmen and ICE officials, Immigration and Custom enforcement officials. And Donald Trump and his administration selectively denied entry to certain Democrats.
Whoa. Back up.
Yes, exactly.
Repeat that.
The administration of Donald Trump selectively denied entry into this meeting with ICE to certain Democrats that they saw that they shouldn't be in this meeting with ICE. And only other Democrats were in the meeting with ICE.
These were congressmen.
These are elected officials.
Legislators.
And one of them being Representative Castro from San Antonio.
Wow.
Well, no, he was actually let into the meeting. And he came out saying that ICE did not answer much questions, that his feeling was after the meeting that the administration is going for everybody except dreamers.
Which even at that is not true.
Which even at that is not true because as we saw this past weekend, dreamers were detained and
accused
were put
of being
in,
a gang member.
Yeah, and were put
accused of being a gang member.
Not
and
even
deported
charged,
on that.
not even convicted, accused by an officer because the officer again finds them to be a threat to national security because of a tattoo they had.
It said "Mom," or it was the Virgin of Guadalupe, But okay. Well, with that, and this is what's always when the whole Dreamer thing came to, when they started, acknowledge that or the deferred deportation or whatever the legal term is.
Deferred action for childhood arrival.
But what scared the heck out of me and gave me pause is that each one of these students had to be registered, right?
Registered or graduated from.
And in other words, but basically, the government knows who they are and where they are.
Absolutely.
Oh yes.
So with that, it could be very easy if somebody woke up with, "Hey, we're just going to round up all the Dreamers."
Well, and that's one of the biggest fears right now in the immigrant community, especially with Dreamers, that President Trump will terminate the Dreamers, the DACA program, and will now enforce immigration law. Using these individuals' information, which with the Obama administration, it was understood that wouldn't happen, that they wouldn't use this information unless they had some kind of criminal conviction, not activity, not charge, not assumptions, but criminal conviction. And unless they had a criminal conviction, they would not use this information for purposes of deporting the individual. Now we have a president that can say, I terminate this program and I direct immigration authorities to go and look for these individuals. That's scary.
It is.
That's scary.
For our listening audience out there, or somebody who may not be aware of it, please explain Dreamers, what that is, and these programs.
I'll let Mr. Martinez explain this.
The executive order, the childhood the deferred action for childhood arrivals, is an executive order that mimics a piece of legislation that has failed to pass repeatedly under what's called the Dreamers Act. The Dreamers Act has failed. It failed to obtain enough votes to pass through Congress, and as a result of that, President Obama said, well, if the legislature cannot get organized and they can't get together and work together to resolve the immigration crisis, at least the people that are the most vulnerable, that have the least the least culprits of committing any type of illegal act, those individuals should be given the opportunity to work and to be here in the United States without being deported. So they mimicked the DREAM Act and they put it now under what's called DACA, the Deferred Action.
Which was an executive order.
Yes.
From Obama.
From Obama. But it's all executive orders, as you know, can be done and undone by the executive. So it's not an actual, it's really not a legal right.
It's not a law.
It is not a legal status. You are not protected legally if you have DACA. However, if it is respected within the internal departments that executive order stands in place, then they should the officers should obey the order. Should obey the order. Nonetheless, you do not have the rights of a legal permanent resident or an American citizen that actually is given to you through legislation. So these individuals, the DACA recipients, the dreamers, which in reality they're not dreamers, because the dreamers would have been legislative beneficiaries. Here it's executive order beneficiaries. So DACA is simply something that has created an illusion that these children now have the right to be here, when in reality it's an order that can be undone tomorrow if President Trump wanted to. And I think that if that were to happen, and I'll pass the mic here right now, if that were to happen, just like it happened in Pearl Harbor, I think that if something like that were to happen, where they're now go after the very individuals that trusted the government to come out and try to contribute towards this country, I think that you will awaken the sleeping giant. I think that you will see a massive amount of uproar and unrest on behalf of this country that you will never have ever seen before, especially on behalf of all the immigrant community. And that will be a day that we will remember. I do not think that, I don't think that it would be, I would just be flabbergasted to see that all of a sudden now they're doing raids on DACA recipients. That would be something else.
Awaken the sleeping giant. I thought you were going to start going into mandatory internment of Japanese Americans. I mean, which I hope we're not there. Mandatory internment of anybody who's Latino. As we look at this, and I do have a response a comment for that sleeping giant. I tell people, it says Latino community, we're never sleeping. We're just too busy working. But you wake, get us our attention, and we're going to bring that force together. But it makes no sense to me why bright, young, educated, or kids or young men and women going to college should go in fear of with classes and everything else is going on. And it's not like these students were given an opportunity. They had to work, they had to pay your tuition, they had to academically meet the standards. Mm-hmm. They're over there against all odds and beating them. Mm-hmm. And they're going to enrich this country. They're going to make it better. They're going to be our future doctors, lawyers, attorneys,
they already
statesmen.
They already are.
You're right, they are. So why in God's name would anybody want to say we're just going to remove that program and send these kids back to a home or a country they never even knew? Makes no sense.
It makes no sense to me. The only thing I could think about is racism
and power,
and power, but more than anything,
let me
discrimination against these people.
We talk about racism and discrimination, and I know it exists, but yet everybody's on. As you say it, I'm not racist. I'm the most non-racist. I mean, they don't like it, but yet they're demonstrating the actions.
Louder than words. We saw yesterday, and I don't know if you saw this, but Trump's press conference. and you saw it with the Black Caucus question. I don't know if you're familiar with this,
the BC,
but
yes.
yeah. The Congressional Black Caucus, a journalist who was a black woman stood up and asked Mr. Trump whether he was going to communicate with the Congressional Black Caucus. And he very abruptly said, well, I don't know them. I don't know them. Do you know them? Can you set up a meeting? I'll meet with them if you know them. Those actions, just directing himself towards a black female like that and making the assumption that because she's a black female, she knows the Congressional Black Caucus, and that she will set up the meeting.
The reporter should be acting as a secretary to set up the meeting for him between the caucus and between the president is absolutely incredulous by anyone who proclaims themselves to be the leader of the best country in the world.
And then the least racist and the most.
Well, I'm surprised that he hadn't met with the Black Caucus, which I can only assume he hasn't met with the Hispanic Caucus either at this point.
No. A lot of the people, the Democrats that were denied entry into the meeting with ICE yesterday were actually from the Hispanic Caucus.
So they just kind of filtered who came in and
yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
God.
It's scary. It's scary, and I hope that this is a fluke mistake, this administration, and I hope this is not this does not represent our future politics.
But okay,
because if it does, it's
but Mr. Valdez,
very scary notion.
The American people voted for this president. He's doing the will of the people. These were his campaign promises.
That's funny, and let me go into the electorate college a little bit, which was. The electoral college.
It was for the colonies. It was set up.
And it was set up to protect individual votes. But as we grew, it stayed there. We have a president that was voted into power by the electorate college, but that 3 million more actual voters voted for the opposite party. We are the only democratic system.
But there was over 3 million people who were bussed in and voted illegally.
That's just... there's no factual basis for that. I mean, we could say
fake news.
We could say a lot of things. Maybe there was 3 million people that voted illegally for Trump. I don't know. That's fake news. But the fact is that we are the only democracy in the world that vote in the president through an electorate college, not the popular vote. All the other democracies do it through the popular vote, and I understand that the Electorate College was instituted so it could protect the integrity of the votes. But at this point, it's reverted itself, and it's not working.
Yeah, we've already outdated.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, it's obsolete at this point, and it doesn't really work to where we are now. And the fact that we're still talking about the election. And the fact that the president himself
still campaigning.
No, and the fact that the president himself years ago said that the Electoral College was a fraud, and that it was ineffective or whatever it was that he tweeted at that point, and now he's saying that the Electoral College is the best thing that has ever happened. It really makes you think. It's not about the party. It's not about the policies. It's about your integrity as a human being, your ethics, your values, and your morals. And do you want the person like that is so hypocritical on what they do and inconsistent, and or the strategy of I want to be unpredictable and I'm going to do something different every minute to scare you into thinking that you don't know what I'm about to do? That's where I think that we're having a problem as a nation. It's not about the parties. It's about character. It's about who you're dealing with as a person.
I think you're absolutely correct. And of course, I was playing, just the devil's advocate here with the thing. Here's part of my dilemma as I look at this, and I consider myself well educated, and I've pretty up on current events and everything. But I was raised in such a manner that my dad was military, my mom was a teacher. I was raised with discipline. I was taught to respect. I don't call people stupid. I don't belittle or try to embarrass people. I listen before I talk, and I try to come up with a plan. But at the same time, even to this day, and it's getting difficult, But I respect the position of the president. That's the president of the United States.
Should be respected.
This is the United States of America, and respect the position. I may not always agree with the policies or the man or woman who's in there, but I still respect it. So, as what I consider myself as an American, obviously, as one who votes in every election, and I tell people I have a right to bitch because I do vote in every election and I study the issues. But my point being is that if that is our commander in chief, which that's a whole nother issue, having the finger on the nuclear code and everything, if that's our commander in chief and that's who this country is supposed to look at for guidance, and when that individual right now is flip-flopping back and forth and just going down rabbit trails, and we can't even determine whether it's the press or the White House itself. We don't know what the truth actually is at this point.
So we need
Well,
another
blur.
It's becoming difficult to respect, and I respect the president, and like you say, he's the president, and it should be respected. But it's becoming more difficult to respect when the president disrespects other sections of our government, our judicial system, our congressmen, the media. So when he starts disrespecting people in such a way, it's kind of hard to respect that person. Respect me and I'll respect you. But if I have a view that's different from you and you don't respect my view just because you're the president and I'm wrong, then it's kind of hard to respect your view just because you say so.
And let's talk about
What's
facts,
it-
though.
what's the
tweets.
example?
Well, the tweets. Even a 5-year-old would rule in my favor.
Yes.
You do not speak to the federal courts in that manner. You do not say to that federal court deciding politically and to try to undermine their integrity of the judiciary.
Yes.
That is a disrespect towards one of the most important branches,
Sacred branches
of our democracy, and that is a lack of respect. Now, it's not about party lines. If you look at what happened with Guantanamo when George Bush was in place and the matter went up to the Supreme Court, George Bush said, "I disagree with your opinion. Nonetheless, I respect your opinion.
Well,
I disagree with it, but I respect it." He didn't sit there and insult them and insult the judges and say,
Call them
even if
names
you were
or-
a 5-year-old, you decide in my favor. This is just a political opinion. No, you respect that branch, and that's part of being a patriot. That's part of being an American, and that's part of making America great again. It's respecting the institutions that we have, not just someone who's going around being a blowhard.
I mean,
And
it's a checks and
you saw it
balances.
with Obama when his DAPA, his second executive order, failed to go through the courts. The court decided against them. He didn't come out and insult anybody. He wasn't in agreement with the decision, obviously, but he didn't come out and insult the judicial system or the justices that decided his case. When you come out, and Donald Trump is the president, the most powerful man in the world, and you come out and you make a statement like that, it has effects. It's basically delegitimizing our judicial system and our judicial branch. And when you put that thought into people's heads, that these are not judges, they're so-called judges.
Oh yeah, so-called
now
judges.
you start.
Yes.
now
those
you-
are the facts that I'm talking about
now-
that undermine
yes.
the actual branches.
Now you
Exactly.
start.
And that's not fake news, by the way.
No, and you start putting fear into people. Not only fear, but you start putting speculation in the judicial system into the American public. Now the American public is speculating whether the judges that we elect are doing the job correctly. And that's a scary thought right there. That is a slippery slope.
This is the genesis of anarchy.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, and then comments in Chicago. He goes, "Do I need to send troops? I mean, do I need to send the feds into Chicago to help the violence over there? I mean, that's
Yes.
kind of scary
Well, this
too."
morning it was reported that he was looking into using the National Guard to go after undocumented immigrants.
Oh my
Yes.
And that right there.
Oh
But
my
it,
God!
it goes back to character, and I don't think it's about the policies. I don't think it's about the party. It's who are we dealing with and what kind of character do they have? Is there a set of principles that they abide by? Do they stick to what they say? And I think that's the issue that we're dealing with today. That every day it's a different story. Whether it's the one China policy, and I'm going to speak to Taiwan whenever the hell I want, and you're not going to tell me what to do, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, guess what? We're doing the one China
Because
policy
Taiwan
again.
makes his daughter's dress line.
Yeah, well. And then having internal people from the executive branch promoting their own private interests, and all these issues that keep on arising. It's not about Republican or Democrat. It's about the leader of the free world. And is this what we want? In my opinion, this is not what I want. I don't want someone that is unpredictable, that you don't know whether your constitutional rights are going to be trampled on any given day. I respect the position of the president. I respect him. But what I do respect even more is someone who has values that resemble what the electorate wanted and what the founding fathers put as a foundation for us, which is the three branches of government and equal representation.
Well, it's obviously that this commander-in-chief he reacts to the media, even though he says he hates it. It's kind of a love-hate relationship. It'd kind of be nice if for a 48-hour period if nobody covered him. It'd probably drive the guy crazy.
Yes.
But at the same time, because he has, and I'll admit it, in the mornings my routine is when the alarm goes off, I reach for my phone and I'm going to Twitter. It says, what did Trump say in the wee hours of the morning?
Make sure if you got the automatic feed, right?
Yeah,
you got that the notification.
Oh, it's like
I don't know if y'all saw the Saturday Night Live skit this past weekend, but there was a funny remark where they're in the People's Court and it's Donald Trump versus the justices that decided against him. But the judge in the People's Court goes, "Mr. Trump, I just want one day that I'm not scared of looking at my phone and seeing an alert on CNN that scares the hell out of me." And it's true. It's true. The morning, I look to my phone to see what's going on, because it changes every day.
Or the tweet, "I'll see you in court," to was that the Circuit Court of Appeals?
Yeah.
"I'm going to see you in court. I'm going to appeal this." Within hours, they said, "We're not going to appeal it." And then hours later, Trump said, I believe he tweeted, "I will see you in court." Then they said, "We're not going to appeal."
And now they're going to do another.
By the end of the day at night, they said, "Yes, we will appeal." That's what I'm talking about.
Well, let me ask
those are the issues. That's a problem.
Let me ask you this. I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of people out there who love what Trump is doing. There's a lot of people who say, we elected him to drain the swamp. We elected him to build a wall. We elected him to shake stuff up. We elected, Donald J. Trump to do this. His base. He's doing what his base wants. Every time he does something like this, whether it be calling the National Guard, write an executive order, say we're building a Great Wall, it invigorates and recharges that base. And as we're looking at that is something that is very, very real out there. So, and I'm trying to be balanced here, a little bit fair. As we have issues with Trump, as there's issues, both good and bad, is there good things that he's actually doing? And is this actually shaking up this system a little bit where everybody has to stop and reevaluate?
Well, he's doing a lot. He's shaking up the system. And yes, he's doing a lot of things that he promised his base, but he's doing it in a manner that is reckless. And that's the problem here.
But his base loves it.
Well, then I don't understand why they love it. And I think misinformation is more the key here. Because, like we said earlier, he uses key phrases to use scare tactics and to play to his base. But as you said earlier, why aren't we talking about the legal rights that undocumented persons have in the United States? Why aren't we talking about that? The base loves it because they don't understand the other side of the story, and because they don't give the other side of the story.
But ultimately, JR, I think that this is an awakening for many. And if there's one thing that we are behind as minorities, the one thing that we are very much behind, it's like starting a 100-meter sprint, 50 meters behind the person who keeps on winning, because those people that kept on winning already knew exactly how the rules worked. And I'm talking about civic participation. I'm talking about all the minorities had the same amount of civic participation as the Caucasians do, then it'd be a whole nother playing field. However, the suppression of the vote between minorities is something that it goes you hardly ever hear about it, but it's true. We the Hispanics don't really vote. Blacks, they do vote, but not in the same ratio or quantities than Caucasians do. So it's important to know that what's happening right now is a wake-up call to say, hey, one of the biggest privileges you have been given as an American citizen is your vote, and that's what speaks for you. So use it. Participate in your community at the local, state, and federal level. Make your voice heard and tell others what this is about. And that's what I think that's the whole purpose of what we're doing here today.
One of the things, too, is it plays to his base, we've said. But let's talk about his base. He won not because of the base that is more racist or that likes to discriminate against people. Donald Trump won because he paid attention to people that felt forgotten, people that felt that the government wasn't paying attention to them. And these people came out and voted for him because of certain promises. It's not the illegal immigration promise. It's not the I'm going to get rid of Islamic terrorists. There is a base for that. That's part of his base. But a lot more people came out because of the promise of I'm not forgetting you. I'm going to create job employment. I'm going to create job opportunities. I'm going to give you back your jobs. And a lot of these people, I believe, the Democratic Party forgot about and didn't
or took them for granted.
Took them for granted, yeah. Took them for granted, forgot about, call it what you want. They did not look after their needs and wants. And those are the people that came out and voted for Trump. If you see when the election happened, which counties he was winning in Florida, for example, it was a lot of little counties where the Democratic Party did not go and campaign because they took him for granted, because they took Florida as a whole state for granted, just because it's a blue state and they believed Hillary Clinton would win. This happened throughout the nation, and we saw the consequences of that. So this should be an awakening, not only to all the public, but to the Democratic Party, that there are people out there that feel forgotten, that feel that the government has too much power and regulation and control over their lives and what can happen with their lives, and that feel that there needs to be a change. And they didn't think that the Democratic Party would bring that change. And Donald Trump promised a change, shake up the system, drain the swamp.
Drain the swamp.
Yeah, and I believe that's what got him in there. If the Democratic Party would have paid attention to these people, I think we'd be in a different position. And I think it needs to be a wake-up call for the Democratic Party to not forget about these individuals and not just rely on being popular.
True.
If you will.
Well,
Ratings. It shouldn't be about the ratings.
It shouldn't be about the ratings. However, Ed Schwarzenegger's show is not doing good as the Apprentice there. The thing that keeps coming back to mind is that I'm curious, what is history going to say about this administration? We don't know yet, but at the same time, I can't help but feel prior to, and I'll be real honest, prior to the election, I was split. I mean, I've historically have always voted, Democrat. Mm-hmm. I've seen some issues. 8 years ago, I was a Clinton supporter. Then Obama got in the office, and then I was looking at Clinton again as a party. But then Trump, as a businessman, me being a businessman, an entrepreneur, I said, part of me was agreeing. I want to see reform of Obamacare, because Obamacare to me is not working. I would like to see a business person head up some of these departments after seeing all this waste. I would like to see that. So as some of these choices for heads of these agencies at one point leaves some people scratching their head on another area, it's like if you get some good managers and leaders and CEOs who know how to run things in a business profitable way, maybe we can streamline government a little bit. So part of me really wanted to see Trump win, and then the other part was watching the campaign trail, what can we expect? Well, I was kind of hoping that a lot of that was a bunch of smoke, mirrors, and show to get elected. And once elected, there'd be a more settling down. But it seems it's just continued and
Exactly.
may even get worse.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think from a historical standpoint, as we look at it, you said it, he's shaking things up. So now that he's shaking things up, people realize that your vote does matter.
Yes.
Your voice does matter. It's causing us to re-examine ourselves and some of the things that are out there. Whether a wall, a $25 billion wall, I'm sorry, I can't get behind that. But at the same time, we're Americans. I got family here in the Valley. I want them to be safe. I don't want criminals coming over.
Absolutely.
We need to do, anybody who commits a crime, no matter who they are, need to be punished.
Yeah.
Deported, sent
Whether
back,
it's thrown in
incarcerated,
jail,
exactly.
deported, whatever it is, there has to be a punishment for crimes. Yes,
But we
absolutely.
don't make a blanket statement that demonizes an entire race or culture or community just to try to gain power or make yourself feel better or to justify a political campaign.
When in power, always carries responsibility. It's been said, with great power comes great responsibility. And when you're the president of the United States and you're creating rhetoric and making statements that support discrimination against certain minorities, that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous. I've lived it personally back when I was a child, and I had not lived it again till this past weekend, where somebody, just because of the way I look, told me, "Welcome to America," and called me a thief.
Really?
I'm a lawyer. And
Well,
I was appalled by this person. I was really upset.
You got upset? I think I don't know what I would. I don't know if I would
man,
have just started.
to be quite honest,
laughing. I mean, it's just that is so. It's extreme.
No,
That is
and I went
extreme.
up to the guy and I said, "What do you mean by that?" And he couldn't answer me. And then I didn't want to create a problem, so I just said, "You know what, man? Me and you are cool. I understand you're drunk. That's fine. I'm just gonna walk away." And I took
Wow.
off. But I had not seen that
level
that level of discrimination
and
just-
outwardly too. It's
Yeah.
not even hidden
Welcome
anymore.
to the
It's
U.S.
just-
It's like I am a U.S. citizen.
like
I was born here. I've been here all this time.
And it was calling you a thief, basically.
He said, "Yeah." He was calling me a thief.
Okay, I got to ask quick. Did he know you were a lawyer at the time?
No.
Okay, because that might have justified the comment. Sorry. Sorry.
Touche. Checkmate. All right. That's a good point.
You're not going to bill me by the quarter hour for doing this show, are you?
Well, it depends on
it'll
your
be a
comments.
standard fee.
Okay. But as we look at it, guys, seriously, in the immediate future, I know there's a lot of fear. What recommendations would you have for kids? I'm sure people possibly listen to the show. Some may be here undocumented. They may have family members. They know some things. What's some of the smart things to do? I mean, you were talking about it earlier, about being prepared, have a plan.
Be
What
proactive.
what can they do to be proactive?
Well, right now, what we're recommending all our clients that are in a situation where they're living here in the United States undocumented, or have family members that are living here undocumented, is for them to prepare for the worst. Prepare all your personal documents, make copies of them. If you have criminal backgrounds, get the court records and make copies of the court records. If you have children, get their birth certificates and make copies of them. If your
Get your
spouse or your
Powers of
parents
attorney,
are
wills,
U.S.
guardianship.
citizens or residents, make copies of their birth certificates and their residency. Have a power of attorney in case you get detained and you need somebody to take over your decisions when it comes to your property, your assets, and your children. And keep copies of everything in your house with you and with someone you trust, and it's part of your emergency plan. And the emergency plan, if you're detained, that person's going to be the one you call, the one that's going to take care of your children, and the one that's going to have the power of attorney. And that's how we prepare and be proactive for the risk of being detained.
Now, when you're talking, Mr. Valdez, in your seminar, I heard you say something about if somebody's been here for 2 years,
That's absolutely true.
there's another category, or how does that work?
The executive order, and this is where it contradicts with law and where it changes law. The executive order states that if the officer, the detaining officer, to his discretion, acknowledges that the individual has been living here for 2 years, if the individual can prove to the detaining officer that they've been living in the United States for 2 years, then that person will have the right to see a judge. Otherwise, the officer has the discretion to expedite remove that person from the country. So right now, it's recommended that individuals who are at risk of being detained by immigration officials carry with them some kind of evidence that they've been here for 2 years in order for them to be able to see a judge. Otherwise, they might not be able to see a judge. Once you're with a judge, it's easier for us as attorneys to act to try to protect the person's rights, and if there is any benefit, to fight for that immigration benefit. But if you're at the discretion of the officer and you can't prove that you've been here for 2 years, that avenue might be cut off.
Okay, you also said something that kind of made me pause. If you're driving down the street with somebody or somebody's in your car, you better know who's in your car.
Absolutely. Human trafficking is a lot more. The charge of human trafficking is used in a manner that goes way, way beyond what a layman person believes to be human trafficking.
Well, it encompasses also alien smuggling.
Alien smuggling.
When you're putting it in.
Yeah,
Yes.
but if I'm driving down, I got a primo, a compadre over here, someone I've known for years, and didn't realize they were undocumented. If we're driving down the road to go get some beers or something and we get pulled over.
And unfortunately, it comes down to knowledge and as to whether or not you were aware that you were transporting someone that was here undocumented or not. And this has become a real issue, especially for legal permanent residents who are charged with this human trafficking charge and ultimately end up in removal proceedings because of the fact that they had someone in the vehicle that they actually did not know that they were here without any documentation. So they end up getting charged with the human trafficking charge, and they end up going into removal proceedings. And unfortunately, many of them don't have what you call the immigration relief, the immigration's legal solution, and end up getting deported because there's very strict requirements as to who can qualify for relief once you've committed what's referred to as an aggravated felony. It's very delicate topic because at the end of the day, when you have communities that are mixed between the individuals that are here with status and are without status, obviously people move and transport themselves in vehicles. And if you don't know the law, or if it's simply not practical, it's not humanly practical for you to not transport your son to school, and you have no method to do it other than you transporting that person through the vehicle, and then all of a sudden you have several people in the vehicle. It's just it invades your daily life to a degree that all of a sudden now you can be getting deported just because you had your compadre in the vehicle that didn't have papers and you got stopped. And then all of a sudden ICE comes and says, hey, you knew that he was here undocumented. So it's a real issue, and it's not spoken about enough.
And I think that's the point a lot of people need to realize, that it's real.
Mm-hmm.
It is real. The United States of America that you knew at one time is changing. Some people think it's for the better. I mean, some are elated that it's happening. Others are just scared. Mm-hmm. They're very scared, especially with the attack on sanctuary cities. We're talking about militarization of the border. Mm-hmm. You know, all these funds. I mean, driving down here to South Texas, it was like I saw more cops than I've seen in a very long time.
Absolutely. But I think that one of the issues or one of the facts that can comfort us is that it is the administrations are temporary, and that every time that something goes to one way, an extreme, the famous pendulum swings. And you know what I'm talking about, the famous pendulum.
Well, let me ask you this, Alex.
So you see where I'm going.
I agree, but let's say whether it's 4 years or 8 years, or let's say 4 years, a lot of damage can be done in 4 years to businesses, to families, to lives. I mean, demographics. I mean, 1 year. I mean, butterfly effect to a certain degree. How much can actually change? I agree. The pendulum may have to swing, but at what point are we going to find that balance of some semblance of acceptance and order as opposed to one extreme for another?
I'll tell you when. Congressional election coming up here in about 2 years. That's when. that's when that pendulum can start swinging the other way. And what you're doing right now, what we're doing right now, and about expressing our opinions and putting into the public the actual real issues and how it affects our daily lives is part of making that pendulum swing back the other way and have those constitutional rights protected. So when the congressional election comes up and we have the power to see where we're going to sit in the House of Representatives and in Congress, that's one of the areas in which we can it's already, how far are we from the next election, congressional election? I think it's less than 2 years
On my computer, I have a countdown.
but it's not too far.
It's about
from
a
now.
year and a half.
No,
It's about a year and a half.
And a lot can change.
And a lot can change, and we're doing it.
I think we're doing it, and by no means do I want to give anybody the impression that I'm anti-Trump, I'm anti-this. I mean, I have issues with the President of the United States and his policies right now. I mean, I've never met the man. I have no desire to, actually, but it's the policies, and this is our reality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking for a lot of times that people, for the first time, are realizing how much authority the President of the United States actually has. And I think he's going to be pushing
And that's
it.
in dispute.
Yeah. He's pushing it, but we do have 3 branches that are supposed to be equal, and there's this dance. But in the meantime, it's affecting not only everybody's lives, or a lot of people's lives in the United States, it's having a global effect. I mean,
Yes.
the rest of the world is watching.
Yes.
And as far as, with other countries having their elections coming up, and with Russia, I mean, I don't care what I hear. I'm not buying it. Russia's there. They got a sub, about 30 miles off our coast right now. The fact that campaign people were in constant communication with Russian officials and operatives, that just scares the heck out of me. What is this world coming to when people can find out or know facts like that, whether they consider them fake news or not? Damn it, stop and investigate it and get to the bottom of it. If in fact, our elections in any way, not being manipulated, but even if they're attempt to tamper with them, we should be able to concern about that and block that.
And unfortunately, if what these allegations are actually come to fruition, and it is true that somehow there was some type of collusion between the campaign and between Russia, if this happens to be true, then you're not going to have your leader that was elected in this form trying to help you incriminate himself. So in other words, we do need to get to the bottom of this. Republicans and Democrats and the Senate and in the House are supporting a congressional investigation to find out how much interaction actually took place and whether there was collusion, whether there was an understanding. Because if that did happen, then don't expect the person who benefited from it to actually do a self-investigation to incriminate himself. That's not going to happen. It's like I told the judge one time, when have you ever heard someone come in here and tell you that they spoliated the evidence when you have the evidence in front of you? No one ever comes in front of the judge and says, Judge, I destroyed the evidence. Why? Because it's self-incriminating. So we're not saying here that the president in any way did anything wrong.
Hillary did it, didn't she?
Well, that's what he said during the administration. But the point is, let's get down to the bottom of this, and let's use our departments, let's use our institutions to understand what exactly happened, so that we understand where our president lies and where his interests are vested, and if there's any leverage from foreign countries that might have upon our leader. Those are legitimate questions to ask. Those are patriotic questions that will make America great again.
It would be nice, and I just gotta say, as far as the Democrats, quit your whining already. It's over, okay? I see, you may disagree with me, but I see no benefit of people going in the streets, protesting, doing property damage to hardworking individuals who own businesses out there. Yes, you want your voice heard, do it through the vote, do it through other things. I'm all for freedom of speech. I'm all for protesting and do it. You can do that till the cows come home, but at one point, use that energy in a productive way to actually start making a significant change.
Yeah.
Guys, it has been great. I want to thank each of you. We're almost, we can keep on going, but we're out of time. But what I'd like to do, and Mr. Valdez, why don't you go first? Any closing thoughts that you might have on this subject or anything that's related? And please, tell us again your law firm, where we can find you. You guys have been super today, and I want to at least acknowledge that your attorneys of what kind where your businesses are at and how people can get in touch with you if you had any further questions.
Yes, of course. Again, Raymundo Valdez. I'm an attorney with Valdez and Monarrez. We have offices in Brownsville and McAllen. You can contact us through 956-278-0888. The last point to make, and this I always tell everybody, and it was a point we made earlier, if you're in a situation where you don't understand what your legal status is, or where you don't know if you have a legal benefit, do not count on the comadres' perception of your situation, on the compadres, primos, or whatever anybody else is saying. Inform yourself. Make an appointment with an immigration attorney. We offer free consultations. Make an appointment. Inform yourself. Sácate de la duda. Know your situation. Know if you could fix your documents. Know if there's a benefit that you could benefit from in the immigration context. And if there is, do it. Do not wait until something goes wrong. A lot of people do not do anything until it's too late. They're already in deportation proceedings. They already got convicted of a crime. Be proactive. Call us. Get information. Inform yourself. That's the best advice I could give anybody.
Okay.
Yes, on behalf of myself, Alex Martinez, as president of the Immigration Institute, our sole purpose is to inform the public. We are also located physically in Brownsville and in McAllen. Our phone number is 956-540-2255. And we really make great efforts to collaborate with organizations, with the cities, with nonprofit, with private sector, to give seminars, to provide information, and to educate the public on what the rights are. What are the strategies that you can use for your human personnel? What are the ways in which you can manage a certain type of detention or deportation encounter with law enforcement? We're here to help the immigrant community and to advise them on what their rights are, and to do that at every level possible. So our intent is to educate the public, educate the immigrant community, and help the families stay together. So we're here to help, and there's nothing more that we want than to see our country progress, and to have everyone that's come here to create and realize this awesome dream, the American dream, to keep that intact and protect their constitutional rights.
All right. And I'm assuming both y'all's firms are members of the local Hispanic Chamber of Commerce?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Just checking.
Absolutely.
Yes. And once again, guys.
Well, I'm also vice chair of government relations for the board of directors of the Hispanic Chamber. So we have an alignment in terms of the chamber and in terms of also the organization on where we stand on many of these issues, with whether it's the wall, whether it's the 20% tariff on imports. As vice chair of the board of the RGV Hispanic Chamber, these matters are issues that affect businesses, business owners, employees, and the people that they serve also. So it's not just the undocumented, it's also the community at large.
Let me ask you this. Just when you think the show's almost over, if they were to build a wall and you see the type of enforcement that's being proposed, what's that going to do to the economy of Texas, and how many American jobs will probably be lost?
It's going to deteriorate. It's going to cause psychosis. It's going to make people believe that we are in a total border war, which we do not. That does not exist. There is no border war going on. I mean, there is sometimes cartel violence going on the other side of the border, but there is no border war going on at least on the United States side. So what it's going to cause a detriment towards the economic development. It's going to cause a detriment to the flow of bilateral trade, and it's going to affect many Americans as well as many people in other countries that we deal with. So it's going to be very, very bad if we all of a sudden invade the border with all sorts of enforcement and it's not required. And not only that, but allocate resources that are needed in other areas of the state or in other areas of the country. You take it away from there and then you put it over here. So it's just now that's not a win-win. That's a lose-lose type situation.
And if we added a tax to Mexican imports to be able to pay for said wall or barrier?
They're going to add a tax to our imports. They're going to... they're our products are going to go up in expense and cost, we're going to be spending more as individuals to purchase products that we purchase every day. Produce, for example. Mexico is not going to pay for that wall. Even if Donald Trump says that they're going to have a 20% tariff on anything that comes in, it's going to hit our pockets.
So Americans will be
indirectly. Americans will be paying twice for the wall. Yes, it's going to create, and going further, it'll create a trade war, something that we don't want with one of our longest allies in the world. I just cannot understand why would we want to ruin that relationship.
Now, I did see on TV the other day the speaker was talking about redeveloping all of our trade agreements and starting charging. I mean, any thoughts on that? I mean,
there's a big irony in what we're just talking about right now about this whole tariff that I want to mention is that, in fact, instead of hurting Mexico, right now Mexico is being helped by many other countries in order to come in and substitute the demand for the products that they were importing over here. So it's actually causing an opposite effect. The president thought that he was going to harm Mexico, and now all of a sudden you have Japan and Germany and several other countries saying, "Hey, we're going to come over here so that you're not being bullied on and picked on, and that your economy doesn't all of a sudden fail as a result of these tactics that the president is using." So it's helping Mexico.
A lot of Mexican nationals believe that if they terminate NAFTA, it'll be to the benefit of Mexico, not the U.S.
Well, and I tend to agree because, I mean, it has been a balance. It has been something with good neighbors. But I also know for a fact, and one of the reasons I would go there so often is just to start learning the business mentality and thinking. But China is pounding at the door right now. If the U.S. leaves a void in Mexico, China's going to come in there very quick.
You create an opportunity for someone else that they're going to take advantage of. And it's a business opportunity. Not only that, it's a political opportunity to gain worldwide power as allies of countries that are coming together. And this nationalistic position that the United States is, as it looks, taking through the administration of Trump is a very, very dangerous thing for us, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So when
the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah. Yes. So when you start kicking out your allies, destroying these relationships, and in doing so, making them your enemies, you're empowering your other enemies.
Well, gentlemen, I'm afraid we're going to go into part 3 if we don't end this right now. Thank you again so much, guys, for having on the show. My name is J.R. Gonzales. I'm your host, and you've been listening to the Latino Business Report. Latino Business Report is brought to you by TAMAC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce. You can find this on iTunes and SoundCloud, along with our website. And for documentation's sake, this recording was done February 16th, 2017. We'll see you next time.
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Thanks.